What if a war thousands of miles away ends up deciding who wins the next US election? Tensions between Israel and Iran have intensified, raising serious global concerns. While the conflict is centered in the Middle East, its political and economic shockwaves could reach American voters in a very real way. So the big question is, could this conflict reshape the 2026 US election? Let's break it down step by step. The relationship between Israel and Iran has been hostile for decades. However, recent escalations, including military actions, threats, and strategic positioning, have brought global attention back to the region. The United States has long been a close ally of Israel, providing diplomatic and military support. While the US may not be directly at war, any escalation increases pressure on Washington to respond, politically, economically, or militarily. Whenever America becomes connected to a major international conflict, voters start asking important questions. Is the country becoming involved in another long-term war? Will this cost American taxpayers money? Will it affect our safety? And most importantly, will it affect our economy? These questions quickly move from foreign policy discussions into domestic political debates. Historically, foreign conflicts have shaped American elections. During times of international crisis, voters often evaluate leadership based on strength, stability, and crisis management. Political scientists sometimes call this the rally around the flag effect, where public support for leadership temporarily increases during national security threats. However, this effect doesn't always last. If a conflict becomes prolonged, costly, or unpopular, voter sentiment can shift dramatically. Wars that drag on without clear outcomes often hurt the party in power. So in the case of Israel and Iran, the political impact depends on whether the conflict stays limited, whether US troops become directly involved, and how effectively leadership communicates strategy. If voters perceive strong and controlled leadership, incumbents could benefit. If voters fear another endless conflict, opposition candidates may gain momentum. Now here's where this becomes especially important for elections: the economy. Middle East tensions often affect global oil markets. If oil supply routes are threatened, global oil prices can spike, and when oil prices rise, American gas prices usually follow. For many voters, gas prices are a daily reminder of economic pressure. Higher fuel costs can increase transportation expenses, food prices, and overall inflation. Even if the US is not directly fighting, economic ripple effects could influence public mood. Remember, in most American elections, economic concerns rank as the top issue for voters. If families feel financial stress due to rising gas prices, higher grocery bills, stock market instability, and economic frustration may shape voting decisions more than foreign policy speeches. In simple terms, if the conflict affects wallets, it affects ballots. Another key factor is political polarization. The Israel-Iran conflict could deepen divisions between parties in Washington. Some lawmakers argue that strong support for Israel demonstrates global leadership and deters adversaries. Others warn that deeper involvement risks escalating into a broader regional war that drains American resources. This divide could influence campaign messaging. One side may emphasize strength and global responsibility. The other may focus on avoiding foreign entanglements and prioritizing domestic issues. Voters who prioritize national security may respond differently, and voters focused on economic or domestic policy concerns. In an already polarized political climate, foreign conflict can become campaign fuel. Another powerful element is media coverage. If headlines focus heavily on escalating war, missile exchanges, or threats of wider conflict, public anxiety may rise. Media framing influences perception. If coverage emphasizes economic risks, voters may focus on inflation. If coverage emphasizes national security threats, voters may prioritize defense leadership. Polling consistently shows that American voters prioritize the economy, national security, stability. If this conflict touches even one of those pillars in a significant way, it can shift public opinion. However, if domestic issues like healthcare, immigration, or internal economic growth dominate headlines instead, the war's influence may remain limited. Let's outline 3 possible paths. Scenario 1. Limited conflict. The situation stabilizes quickly, oil markets calm down, US involvement remains minimal. Impact on the election? Likely small. Scenario 2. Economic shock, oil prices spike, inflation rises again. Consumer confidence drops, impact on the election significant, especially for incumbents. Scenario 3. Military escalation. Direct U.S. military involvement or broader regional war. Impact on the election major. National security would dominate campaign debates. The direction this conflict takes will determine its political influence. So, will the Israel-Iran war change the 2026 U.S. election? The honest answer is, it depends. It depends on escalation. It depends on economic consequences, and most importantly, it depends on how American voters interpret leadership decisions. In today's interconnected world, global conflicts don't stay isolated. They ripple through markets, media, and public opinion. And when public opinion shifts, elections follow. What do you think? Will this conflict influence American voters? Or will domestic issues dominate the election conversation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more in-depth political analysis, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.